idea for the show.
I still don't know what the idea is.
It's about nothing.
Right.
Everybody's doing something. We'll do nothing.
They say, what's your show about? I say nothing.
There you go.
I think you may have something here.
Cross Coast Bias presents the League About Nothing podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Our Week 12 recap show. We're getting down to the wire here. Things are getting close. It was an exciting week in the league. We're going to start off this week with our trade recap. There was one trade. I can't say I hate all of you for doing this because it was my fault, but man, this is another gross one. It's just, the trades have gone downhill in recent weeks, and there's no one to blame but you and I.
Well, see, this is the problem that I was talking about earlier in the year. Everyone's already traded away their picks, and all of the rebuilding teams have traded away all of their good players. So there's nothing but scraps left around at this point. So
those scraps at this point happen to be Jake Browning and Jalen Guyton, who I traded to Mr. Good News for a 2025 third-round pick. Stop me if you've heard this. I traded another quarterback to Mr. Good News.
Yeah, let's hope this one lasts a little longer than the last few that you've traded him.
There's almost no way that it can't. It's not going to last any shorter.
I mean, he already survived the first game, so
it's true. Heineke didn't last outside of the first half of the first game, so we're moving in the right direction.
Oh God, why does he keep trading with you?
It's an excellent question. When I sent him the message, I was like, I know you don't want to hear from me at all right now, but I hear you need another quarterback. I wouldn't have blamed him if he was just like, no, I'm not trading with you again. I'm done with this.
This is an abusive relationship.
Honestly, I do feel bad about it. That's why I went to him first after I got Browning off of waivers. Mostly because I felt bad about the fact that every other quarterback I've traded him has exploded.
Yeah,
or imploded.
Not great.
Yeah. That's the only trade we have. Is not a lot of recap. Mr. Good News keeps losing quarterbacks left and right. I didn't need Browning. I grabbed him off of waivers specifically with the express interest of trading him. That's what happened.
Yeah, fingers crossed that all of his ligaments remain intact.
Oh, why do you even speak it into existence?
And if it does, then, hey, this is the kind of trade that you need to make when you're out of quarterbacks again and you're still trying to compete. I mean, he's still right in the middle of the playoff race like all these other teams. You got to have quarterbacks. And Guyton was a nice throw-in. I mean, especially after this week where Quentin Johnson he got hurt, and then the coach said, well, we took him out of the game, but it wasn't because of injury. It's not a great sign. So Jalen Guyton is currently the number 2 wide receiver in LA.
Yeah, and if you're attached to a quarterback like Justin Herbert, there will be opportunities.
He continues to throw to Keenan Allen about 50 times a game, but at
delighting you, I'm sure.
At some point, he has to throw to someone else.
If you say so, but I don't think anyone's told him that. Let's move over to the waivers where we could talk about guys like Jake Browning, who went for $61, but that wasn't our highest bid of the week. Flea put a $67 bid on Ty Johnson. That is some big money at this point in the year.
Aggressive.
He had a 15-point week in week 11. He was the RB16. So I obviously, if you see that kind of production available in a league this deep, you want to jump on it. But the unfortunate news for her is that it didn't last because this week he dropped back down to 2.4 points.
Well, he played the same role that he did the week before. It's just he didn't score any touchdowns this week.
He actually had more rushing attempts this week.
The Bills like to run a 3-man committee, and he's basically replaced Damian Harris as the third back in that rotation with Latavius Murray and James Cook.
And if one of those guys gets hurt, maybe he steps up into one of their roles and gets a few more carries or a few more catches.
Then we'll see Leonard Fournette.
Oh, jeez. I forgot playoff Lenny was there.
He's there. He's just waiting for his opportunity.
So hopefully Johnson has a couple of good weeks for her down the stretch, but I don't know that a $67 bid was entirely necessary. Yeah, Georgia Mike was second at $45. I was third at $8 and thought I had a legitimate chance to win that bid.
That was probably closer to the appropriate bid.
Yeah, Mel bid 5, Mr. Good News bid 0. So those are your 5 bids on that one. Second highest was Jake Browning, as I said, at $61. A little bit more action on this one, even if the winning bid was lower. I won at 61. Mr. Good News bid 51. Georgia Mike 45. Judd 28. Rug 25. Mel 21, and you 7.
That was my max bid.
Yeah, there we have it.
Starting quarterbacks are useful, even if they're Jake Browning.
Yeah, and it looks like he's going to start more than just a week or two as well, because what else do they have?
Yeah, Joe Burrow's out for the year after surgery. It's going to be the Jake Browning show unless he falls apart completely.
Yeah, and
which is always possible because he is Jake Browning.
Yeah, even if he does fall apart, who's left behind him at this point?
Oh, it's AJ McCarron. Don't worry.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Judd picked him up. I remember that now that you say it. I actually looked earlier today to check who was behind him to see if I could pick them up, just because, Mr. Good News might need another quarterback in a week. So a lot of action there. I can only assume that Georgia Mike and Benign Rug bidding at $45 and $25 were planning on doing exactly what I did.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
pick up these quarterbacks and then try to trade them to the teams that don't have any fab but need quarterbacks.
And speaking of that exact thing, Georgia Mike was successful with his $45 bid on Tim Boyle. Tim Boyle saw 45 from Georgia Mike as the winning bid. Judd bid 28, Rug 10, Mel 8. I bid $2, beating out you and Mr. Good News, who each bid $1.
Yeah, I didn't feel good about bidding $1.
I only bid $2 because I knew you would bid $1. And I wouldn't have been happy if you got a starting quarterback for $1. I didn't actually want Tim Boyle. I still don't.
I don't think anybody wants Tim Boyle.
Well, Georgia Mike either hasn't tried to trade him or has been unsuccessful because he's still on his roster a week later.
Well, he's had to handcuff his Zach Wilson chair.
That's true. You got to lock up
Jets starting quarterback position.
Oh, God. The worst passing offense in the league.
It's not great.
Yeah, so maybe he'll move him this week. Maybe he's in it for the long run with Tim Boyle. I don't know what's going on there. I assumed that he'd have already tried to move Boyle for literally anything he could get. Maybe he just can't get anything.
Well, it is Tim Boyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of fab spent. I mean, we're almost at the end of the year, so might as well spend it now. A lot of people went all in this week.
Yeah, you can't take it with you.
I mean, you kind of can into the off season. We keep this fab for a good amount of the off season.
That's true, but
there's also nothing to pick up in the
I was going to say, is that going to net you much?
Probably not.
You can use it over the off season, but it's probably a little bit less urgent over the off season as well.
Yeah.
All right. So those are the waivers. Let's move over and get to some of these injury recaps. Not a ton of injuries this week, but as always, there are some. So we'll start at the quarterback position. Dorian Thompson-Robinson exited with a concussion. He's in the protocol. We'll see what happens there when he comes out. It could be him back this week, but most of the guys getting concussions have missed at least a week. So we might see PJ Walker again, and we might see Joe Flacco make his debut.
Yeah, it seems like his second go around at this starting job might be just as brief as his first.
Yeah.
I think it might be a one and done for DTR.
He didn't look awful. He didn't look good, but it wasn't as bad as his first time.
Yeah, I mean, he played like a late round rookie, a day 3 rookie. What are you expecting him to do? They can't all be Brock Purdy.
Along with Dorian Thompson-Robinson exiting that game, Amari Cooper also exited that game.
He took a vicious hit over the middle, and he left with a rib injury. The x-rays were negative for fractures, so it looks like he's probably just dealing with a bruise. But if you bruise that rib cartilage, it's painful. So you can probably, throw the flak jacket on and gut it out, but we'll see if he ends up playing or not. I would consider him highly questionable.
Yeah, he left and he didn't come back. So that's, never a good sign. We don't know, that team's going to be without its at least first 2 string quarterbacks, most likely. So them not having their number 1 wide receiver, that passing game could struggle this coming week.
Yeah, it wasn't great to begin with this year.
No, it has not been. Keeping in line with the wide receiver injuries, we had receiver injuries to Raheed Shaheed and Chris Olave in New Orleans. Concussion for Olave, quad for Shaheed. Michael Thomas already out. There are no wide receivers left standing other than A.T. Perry.
They just cut Keith Kirkwood last week and they had to re-sign him so he can start in this game.
Yeah.
He'll be starting next week, him and Lynn Bowden.
Lynn Bowden. Oh, you're going to see Juwan Johnson and Lynn Bowden out there getting every target, apparently.
Lynn Bowden, former quarterback turned running back turned wide receiver turned quarterback turned
Is this his
wide receiver.
3rd or his 4th team? I haven't been keeping track.
Raiders, Dolphins. Was he on the Patriots?
I
The Patriots
don't know.
love
I
these type of
thought he was
players.
with someone else, but I couldn't remember.
Patriots love those type of players that can
That's
play
true.
15 positions and none of them well.
Let's
He
see.
feels like a Patriots guy.
Yeah, he was with New England last year. Appeared in 1 game, got no fantasy points. All right. One other wide receiver injury of note. Pop Douglas got clotheslined and his face exploded.
His face exploded. I mean, his head bounced off the turf. That's for sure.
So I was at that game, unfortunately for
Oh,
everyone.
you saw that live.
I did see that live, and it was a little rough. He got ragdolled.
They said it wasn't a concussion. They announced him out with a head injury, which normally means concussion. But he spoke with the media after the game, and usually guys that are in concussion protocol don't speak with the media.
Yeah.
And he told the media it's not a concussion, but sometimes these symptoms can come days down the line. So it's possible he gets downgraded in the middle of the week and ends up going through protocol and misses a game. But we'll have to wait and see.
Hopefully he's okay, because that was a tough hit.
Yeah, he didn't go back in this game. So
No,
that
not
leads you to
surprising.
believe that the independent neurologist probably pulled him out.
Yeah. And he was having a very busy game, if not a very productive game.
He's one of their only sources of offense.
Yeah. So Jonathan Taylor had surgery today to repair his thumb. He's going to miss 2 to 3 weeks, according to Jim Irsay. Didn't see that coming.
They didn't announce anything in the game.
No.
I mean, the snap share started to tilt more towards Zach Moss as the game wore on. He split a lot more than he had been in the last few weeks. Had been trending pretty much to 85% Jonathan Taylor. And suddenly Zach Moss was getting a lot of work in the second half. At some point, he must have broke the thumb during the game, and they just kind of limited his work.
Yeah,
It's
you
on his
wonder-
offhand, so hopefully he can make it back within a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't expect to see a guy get surgery and come back super quickly, but Irsay said today 2 to 3 weeks is their hope. I mean, maybe it happens.
It's only a finger. Cut it off and keep playing.
That's the spirit.
The spirit of Ronnie Lott.
Mel must be happy he got Zach Moss back as a starting running back for the stretch run here.
No, I've been trying to trade for him every week since
Been
he's
trying to
been
trade for him for years. Stop it.
Yeah, but he's been languishing on the bench the last few weeks, being phased out of the offense. I thought maybe I had a chance to buy, but no.
Try again in the off season.
No, he's never going to sell him just to spite me.
All right, so one other one that we missed last week, Luke Musgrave got hurt with an abdomen injury. He's apparently possibly done for the year now. We don't know what's going on here.
Well, the reason we didn't know because he didn't come out of the game last week. They announced it later that he had a lacerated kidney and he went to the hospital. So we're assuming that he's probably not coming back before the end of the season.
I would assume not.
He is on IR right
Yeah,
now.
they put him on IR, so it's at least 4 weeks, and they're on the fringe of the playoff picture. So, I mean, for fantasy purposes, he's done. But for real life purposes, if they make the playoffs and he's recovered, I'd imagine you see him back.
Yeah, we'll see if they're still in the playoff race 4 weeks from now.
Yeah. No telling on that one. So sorry we missed that one last week, but blame it on LaFleur.
I can't believe he played the rest of the game like that. Apparently, internal organs are not important to the tight end position. Who knew?
Little known fact. And let's move over to the matchups. We had a league median score this week of 201.33. Pretty solid week for all of you still contending teams. The rest of us disappointing as usual. Our number one score on the week was Flea with a 268.95. Flea beat Benign Rug, who had a 104.71. Big week for Flea. One of the highest scores we've seen in a few weeks here. Her team was led by the quarterback position this week. Dak Prescott with a 36.5. Matt Stafford, 27 points. Two big performances out of those guys. And she finally had a big breakout game from Bijan Robinson, 28.55.
About time, Arthur Smith. About time.
Don't get on my boy Arthur Smith. You know I love Arthur Smith.
He's the best coach in that division.
Ooh. Damning with faint praise right there.
He's going to win that division by default, so he's not going to get fired.
Thank goodness, because I cannot wait for another year of this.
Hey, if he uses Bijan like this, that's all right. We can live with that. Finally decided to give his best player the ball around the end zone. And he rewarded them with multiple touchdowns.
Multiple touchdowns. That'll happen when, you put your good players in position to succeed.
Yeah, interesting how that works.
Shocking. So a solid day from the rest of Flea's lineup. No huge performances, but Mike Evans continues his just, what is this? It's like 9th year in a row of just steady production at the wide receiver position. Yeah,
it's like the 900th year in a row that he's going to go over 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns.
The dude is just an absolute machine. So
he's Tampa Bay's goal line back. Every time they get to the one, they give it to Mike Evans.
It's been that way for years. Like Tom Brady was the same way. Baker Mayfield's the same way. Like we're at the goal line. It's time for Mike Evans to get a touchdown. He's the anti-Julio Jones.
Oh, that's not nice.
I only said it because you're here.
Me and our thousands of listeners.
Thousands. Are you confused?
Dozens. I meant dozens.
Yes, there you go. It's not dozens, it's dozen. Singular. Solid performances from the rest of Flea's team. As we mentioned before, she just lost Jonathan Taylor, so she's going to be a little bit thinner moving forward, but she's got a lot of depth. She should be able to weather that storm. And then hopefully he'll be back for the playoff push for her. On Rug's side of things, Rug's tanking. There's not a whole lot to talk about here. Good game for Christian Watson. Decent game for Jordan Addison, considering the struggles that Josh Dobbs had. Nice week for Cedric Tillman in Cleveland.
Yeah, Mari Cooper out. He's been out there for more snaps and more routes than Cooper and Eli Moore the last couple of weeks since they traded away Donovan Peoples-Jones. So he finally got some targets to go with all those wind sprints he's been running.
I mean, if you're out there doing that many, as you said, wind sprints, eventually you'll get a couple of targets, even if it's only by accident.
Right.
Again, the one down spot for Ruggs' team this year, outside of obviously, him not trying to field a competitive team, has been Bryce Young. Obviously, Young drafted very highly in both the NFL and in our league. Young put up 6.56 points this week. Tough performance, and Frank Reich just got fired.
Yeah, it's not been a good year for him, and in turn, it's not been a good year for the Panthers, and that led to not a good year for Frank Reich.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't think Frank Reich deserved to get fired 11 games into his tenure. However, I don't know that it was going to improve, so I'm not sure it's the worst decision.
I don't think that Frank Reich is a good coach.
No,
I
don't think so either.
He tried to force a system that he didn't have the players for, so we kind of knew it was going to be a rough year. The running game.
What system did they have the players for? Their best players are bad.
They had a successful power running scheme last year with basically the same roster minus Donta Foreman, and they switched to a zone. And this line is not equipped for that kind of scheme, and it's really hurt the running game. And they don't have the receivers that can separate. Bryce Young is a rhythm passer, He needs guys that can get open on time, and he just doesn't have it. Thielen's the closest he has, and Thielen's 86 years old.
I don't know where this franchise goes at this point. They are not in possession of their own first-round pick. It's going to be a tough one for them for the next year or two, because what coach is going to want to go there after the last two coaches have been fired after one season?
Yeah, that's the biggest problem. They've had, 5 coaches in the last 3-4 years since
if you count the interim guys.
Since Tepper has taken over this team.
Yeah, you were telling me before you think and you said it in the league chat, in the group chat there, the league chat. Tepper's clearly meddling. He's too involved without having the proper base of knowledge to actually be involved. Our second highest scoring team on the week was Flinch, put up a 244.84, beat out Criddle, who had a 210.26. So both of these teams over our median score. Big week for Flinch, and he needed this to stay in contention.
Yeah, big time. This was a big win for him. Getting the double win, staying alive. If he had taken a loss, especially 2 losses, Criddle had a good week on the other side. He did. His best week of the year. He needed a big performance, and he got one. We were ready to eliminate him from contention last week, but he's clawed his way back in after this week.
Yeah, so it was a very different way that these two teams scored most of their points. Criddle had huge performances from Jalen Hurts and CJ Stroud, both 30-point weeks at the quarterback position. Flinch, on the other hand, had 30 combined points from his quarterback positions, with Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson, again, just having a little disappointing day. But at the running back position, he had Kyron Williams put up 41 points and Isaiah Pacheco put up almost 29 points.
Yeah, the way Flinch has built his roster, when he's having a good week, it's going to be the running backs driving it.
Solid performances from Ramondre Stevenson and Derrick Henry in his flex spots as well. Those running backs just coming through.
Yep, he got Kyron back from IR, and he went right back to being running back 1.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, Kyron's an interesting prospect. When he was in college, a lot of people viewed him as one of the top running backs, and then he tested so poorly. He was small and slow, undersized, ran a terrible 40, dropped in the draft to day 3, couldn't really get on the field last year for the Rams. And when he did get on the field, he didn't really do anything to separate himself. And then in training camp, it looked like he was buried. And all of a sudden,
he was.
Week 1 rolled around, and he's been running back 1 every week he's been out there.
It's incredible. I mean, obviously part of it is the fact that McVay runs a very running back friendly system, but he still has to go out there and do the work. Like he's capitalizing on the opportunities. So good for him.
Cam Akers wasn't doing this early in the year.
He was certainly not. Negative 41 over expected. What was that, week 1 or week 2, whatever it was?
Yeah, it was week 1.
Yeah, tough.
Not pretty.
Again, big week for Flinch, came at the right time. He needed it to stay in contention. The thing I just worry about is he still hasn't gotten good production from the quarterback position. That's going to be the Achilles heel of his team moving forward unless something changes.
Yeah, well, he didn't need it this week. So if he can keep getting 6 running backs out there over 20 points, he probably won't need quarterbacks.
Fair enough. Also, apparently the Rashee Rice breakout game was this week, 28 points. Looks like the number 1 target there now. Not the number 1, the number 1 wide receiver target, I should say, behind Kelsey, obviously. If you've really locked up the top receiver spot in the Patrick Mahomes offense, that could be pretty big for him.
Yeah, I've been trying to do that all year. I've traded for all of the other Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers, all of the bad ones.
Yeah, you've managed to lock that down. Congratulations. How's Watson looking these days?
Hey, he scored a touchdown this week. Again.
Sure he did. Didn't have the 11 targets, thank goodness.
Yeah, that was not an effective strategy. Not surprised that they moved away from that quickly.
Over on Criddle's side of things, good week for McCaffrey, good week for Montgomery, solid week for Chuba Hubbard.
It's always a good week for McCaffrey every week.
No, McCaffrey's just a machine. It's exactly what we've talked about before with his team. His big names are good and they produce. He just doesn't have those extra bench spots to fill out the rest. He's super close. He'll get there next year.
Yeah, he got just enough from the ancillary pieces to push him over the median this week, finally.
Again, I'm excited for his team next year.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to be a competitive team for sure next season.
Our third highest scoring team of the week was Big's team with a 230.60, beating out Georgia Mike, who had a 112.06. Another good week for Big's team, another 2 wins.
We talked about how he has a generous schedule over this last month of the year, but he's not eking out wins. He's earning these wins, and he's well over the median.
Yeah, pretty much every week, in fact. So this week, it was his wide receivers coming through. Nico Collins, Calvin Ridley, Zay Flowers, all right around 25 points. Tank Dell appears to have solidified that number 1 role for CJ Stroud, just under 20 points. Jalen Hyatt with the breakout game. You're welcome.
That was all because you were there in the stands cheering him on.
Exactly. Glad you understood what that you're welcome was. Solid week for those wide receivers. Big's team seems to be able to jump back and forth between what position scores him the majority of his points every other week.
It's because he's got a deep and talented roster.
It'll be scary if he gets all cylinders firing and all those positions going at once come playoff time.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what he's hoping for.
Well, he's got Lynn Bowden, so he can fill in at any position needed.
Only wide receiver eligible, unfortunately.
So over on Georgia Mike's side of things, he's over 100 for the, was it third or fourth time now? He's every week he seems to just tick up a couple more points.
Yep, this is what we were looking for. As season progressed, his roster is maturing. Players are starting to produce. A lot of these young guys starting to put up points. He hasn't been the lowest scoring team for a while now.
You're welcome as well.
You weren't the lowest scoring team this week either.
No, not this week. I think it was last week that I was, 2 weeks ago, recently. So, solid performances. Jameson Williams, signs of life these days?
Well, he followed up the breakout game last week with another solid game. He's getting a lot of run. He's finally moved into that number 2 role as far as snap share and route share.
Mm-hmm.
It's positive going forward. He's going to keep building. Fantasy numbers haven't been great so far, but every time one of these guys, Gibbs or Montgomery, breaks a long run, you see JMO with a big block working his tail
he's
off,
engaged.
getting himself into the good graces.
He's out there and he's engaged and he's playing the way that the coaches want him to play. So he will continue to see more opportunities.
Yep. Keep biting kneecaps while you're out there and you'll get to keep playing.
Yeah, same thing for Jaden Reed. Just a little bit more work every week, a little bit more on the snap share every week. It's starting to look decent in Green Bay these days.
Yeah, he's become a very dependable option. Intermediate area of the field between the 20s. He's been probably their most reliable receiver this year. I know that Dobbs has been great in the red zone and Watson occasionally pops a big play, but it's really been Reed who's been the chain mover for them.
We'll see if he can continue to build on that success. One thing I wanted to note about Big's team, he had good weeks at the tight end position from Laporta and McBride, but he's thin at the tight end position. He just lost Musgrave probably for the year, maybe not for the year, but that means he doesn't have
those are his only
bench tight ends at this point. So he needs those guys to come through.
The good news is they've been very productive.
They have been, yes.
Every week. So hopefully he can just kind of ride them out. Yeah, if one of them struggles or puts up a 0, that 0 is going in the lineup.
It is. So we'll keep an eye on that. Maybe he tries to address that and make a move. He's got assets that are either injured or more draft picks that he can move for some depth there if he so chooses.
Yeah, I know someone who's sitting on Ravens' new starting tight end, Isaiah Likely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Maybe you should drop a line, see what he can do there. Our fourth highest scoring team this week was Judd, who put up a 223.42. He beat out JMC, who had a 201.16. Now, for everyone who was paying attention earlier, that means JMC finished 0.17 below the median score this week.
Yeah, we had a last minute roster correction that bumped him under the median, unfortunately for him.
Yeah, we had an interesting discussion in the chat today with the commish mentioning how he wants people to set their lineups if they can. Obviously, not like this isn't like a you have to do this type of like let's try and all help him out a little bit and try and set a somewhat predictive lineup going forward to make his job a little bit easier on Tuesday mornings.
Yeah, it makes sense. Just saves him a little bit of time of having to scroll back and forth and put people in the lineup.
Yeah, and I mean, he's doing it all by hand. It's not shocking that every now and again we have one that slips through the cracks.
Right. It's bound to happen.
So Judd's team with a pretty solid effort here. Jordan Love, almost 30 points. Keenan Allen, almost 30 points, your hero. Honestly, that Keenan Allen trade, I know I've mentioned it before, but it's just worked out so well for his team this year.
Pretty much everything's worked out well for Judd this year. If you haven't been paying attention,
that's a fair point.
Move he's made has been brilliant.
Yeah. He put up 223 this week, so beat the median score by over 20 points. He didn't even have a second quarterback in his super flex spot. He had Keaton Mitchell in there. If you don't even need a second quarterback to get there, your team's in good shape.
Yep, and he's one step closer to locking up the number one seed in the bye.
JMC goes 0-2 this week. Brutal luck for him being against one of the other good teams and missing out on that median by the slimmest of slim margins.
Yeah, JMC's got a tough road now. He's kind of hanging around the bottom of the standings. There's a handful of teams fighting for those last couple of spots, and he's right in that mix. And he does not have an easy road to get there. He plays Mel, he's fighting with in the bottom of the standings, and then he plays me the last week of the season. We're all kind of fighting for those last couple of spots.
Those are some tough matchups right there. And obviously, you could still get the median wins, but that might not be enough.
Yep. Those last couple of spots are going to be determined head to head based on how the schedule looks.
Yeah. And he missed out this week despite some really strong performances on his team. Tyreek Hill with a 30-point game was the number one wide receiver on the week. DJ Moore, another big game, 11 catches, 114 yards. Deebo Samuel, Jacoby Myers, both over 23 points. Nice performances there. That's what got him close, but just unable to get that last little push.
Yeah, it's a story of his team all year. He has a bunch of good players, really good players, like top of the position players, but he just doesn't have enough. And he's without that second quarterback this week too, or not just this week. He's without a second quarterback right now. It's a tough position to be in. Yeah, it seems like his team's just kind of running out of steam here towards the finish line. We'll see if he's got enough to sneak in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a close one here. Our next highest scoring team was your team with a 201.49, beating Mel's team, who put up a 185.69. As we just discussed, JMC was slightly under that median score. You are slightly over that median score, being 0.16 over. So a very, very slim margin separating you, the median, and JMC.
Got that extra win by the slimmest of margins.
Yeah, so we had the lineup set, and then you noticed that Ezekiel Elliott was supposed to be in your starting lineup, not on your bench.
My savior, Ezekiel Elliott.
What a recovery there. Your RB1. So
I needed every point I could get this week.
Yeah, you managed the win over Mel's team, despite Mel having the number one scoring quarterback on the week. Josh Allen put up 42.41 points. Did you watch that game?
That game was ridiculous. The Bills ran 95 plays in that game. 95. No wonder Josh Allen had 42 points. They had the ball for like 3 games worth of plays.
Josh Allen with the big day, but you had a solid day from Trevor Lawrence, 25.56 points. Good days out of a few of your wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb, a little bit less than he's been doing recently, but 20 points. Waddle up at 24. Olave up at 22. Really, your wide receivers carried you.
Olave did all that basically in the first half. He got knocked out early in the third quarter.
He knocked out literally.
Could have had a really big game, but at least he got me enough points to get over the median. That's what I needed.
All right, our last matchup, We have two teams under the median here. Mr. Good News had a 200.45. He beat my team. I had a 115.82. So Mr. Good News misses out by just under a point on getting 2 wins, but he does beat his weekly opponent, so keeps him alive.
Yeah, again, the slimmest of margins separating these teams from the median and separating wins from losses and separating the standings. I mean, this is as close as you can possibly get for a playoff race down the stretch here.
Yeah, first down here, an extra catch there. It makes all the difference at this point. So for Mr. Good News, unfortunately, poor day from his quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett with a 10.62. Justin Herbert with a 13.13 is really what let him down. If he gets a decent performance out of either one of those guys, he's over the median and you get pushed down. That didn't happen. But solid days from Josh Jacobs, Gabe Davis, Curtis Samuel. An unexpectedly good game from Tyler Higbee. I don't think we've seen many of those this year.
Right. Well, when you score 2 touchdowns and you're a tight end.
Solid performances from Diggs and Cooks. Not a lot else to talk about here. We don't need to talk about my team at all. Freiermuth had a monster game. Welcome back.
He did. Tight end 1.
Yeah.
Everyone was talking about Jalen Warren and George Pickens in that new offense. Turns out to be Pat Freiermuth.
Listen, we all know that Freiermuth is a good player. I don't think he's 120 yards a week good, obviously, but
he's the centerpiece of that offense now. Hey. You can expect this every week going forward now that Matt Canada's fired. Matt Canada was holding him back.
That part is actually true, though. It's one of those, they didn't target the middle of the field at all under Canada. It was sideline shots and nothing over the middle. I would expect Muth to have more success than he was having in the early part of the season, even if he's not putting up 120 a week. But you said it. He's going to put up 120 every week. People, come with your first-round picks. Let me know. I need multiple first-round picks. Minimum, it's 120 yards a week.
Minimum 6 first.
6 first. Well,
does anyone have like 6 first-round picks?
I think Georgia Mike between this year and next year, maybe. Might have to go an extra year out. He might only have 4 this year. No, I think he's got 4. So we need to go 2 years out. So Georgia Mike, if you want to do that, I'm willing to listen. That wraps up the matchup section here. Again, some super close ones, close in on that median score. It's all one like I said, 1 catch, 1 first down, all those extra little bonus points. 1
fumble.
These 1 sack taken at the quarterback position. There's plenty of ways that we can lose points, gain points here.
The margins are razor thin right now. The stakes are high. The margins are thin. This is a fun last couple of weeks of the season. We got 2 more to go.
And speaking of 2 more to go, let's go take a look at those playoff prediction odds and see where we are with 2 to go. We have a new leader in the clubhouse. We're back to the reason you chose this site in the first place. You're in first place, according to chance to make the playoffs. There are 3 teams, your team, Big's team, and Judd's team, that are all listed by Dynasty Daddy as a greater than 99% chance to make the playoffs, as in you guys are virtually locked in. There's almost nothing that's likely to happen to push you out at this point. So congratulations to the 3 of you.
Yeah, except I played Judd this week. I'll probably go 0-2, and then I'll be back out of the playoff picture by next week.
We can only assume. So, reverse jinx. Congratulations on making the playoffs. The next highest team is Flea, who has a 99% chance, according to Dynasty Daddy, which is not quite that lock, but 99% chance sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, we're coming down to the wire now. There's only a couple weeks left. We're gonna go through the last 2 weeks, how it looks for each of these playoff teams, and kind of see who has an easier road there. Some of that is baked into these odds.
Exactly. That is taken into account here, which is why Big, who has a very easy road in week 14, is such a high percentage chance, and why Flea, who has a also very easy road in week 14, has such a high chance. So
they're essentially locked into 2 wins over the last 2 weeks. Even if they're below the median, they should still get enough wins to get in the playoffs. And that's baked into the odds here.
So after Flea at 99% chance, we see JMC at 79%. Now, obviously, JMC went 0-2 this week and is missing a quarterback, so that does look kind of aggressive to me, but he's got the record at the moment. He's got a game up on the next couple of teams.
Yeah, it's tough because it's one game, which
he's at 16-8 right now.
In 2 weeks, normally that would be a hefty lead, but really it's 4 games left for us because we play 2 each week.
True. So after JMC, we have 2 15-9 teams, Mel's team and Mr. Good News at 59% and 58%. So they're essentially the same percentage chance here to make the playoffs. Right now, it's Mel's team is on the inside, Mr. Good News team on the outside based on the points tiebreaker. Mr. Good News is about 70 points behind Mel right now. So it's not an insurmountable lead over 2 weeks, but it's a pretty sizable lead.
They're both essentially coin flips at this point for the last seed.
Yeah.
And again, this playoff odds could look very different by next week. So at this point in time, they're coin flips because they're both a couple of wins behind.
Yep. And pretty close in points, but not.
You can make up 2 wins in 1 week with
exactly
the game against the median.
And speaking of needing to make up 2 wins, our only other team that's still alive, Flinch, 2 games back at 13-11, has a 6% chance. So he's alive.
Mathematically still alive thanks to the 2 wins. He needed those
2 wins. Were big.
And he needs to continue to do it for the next 2 weeks to give himself a chance to sneak in.
If he has 2 more weeks like that, he might do it.
He's not dead yet.
So the other 4 teams obviously mathematically eliminated, less than 1% chance, which is in fact 0 because there's no possible way.
Been eliminated for a few weeks now.
Yeah, no, we don't need to really cover that. So we took a look at the remaining strength of schedule for the playoff teams here. I went through and did all this morning, and then we noticed, and by we I mean you noticed, that your matchup was incorrectly scored, and then it changed everything.
You should blame Big because Big's the one that noticed something was wrong in his matchup. So Mel advised us all to look at our own matchups, and that's when I realized there was also something wrong in my matchup. So really, this is all Big's fault. But it did help me pass Big in the standings. So thanks, Big.
So remaining strength of schedule here. There are 2 teams, your team and Mel's team, that basically have the same draw. You play teams with 35 combined wins over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's not ideal for me.
You actually have the exact same draw, only in reverse order. You guys play JMC and Judd over the next 2 weeks. So that's a tough way to finish out for you and Mel.
No free wins for us. We're going to have to earn our spot if we make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's true. So the next hardest strength of schedule remaining, Judd plays teams totaling 33 wins remaining on his schedule. So Judd's in first place right now. You are in second place right now. And Mel is in 6th place right now. Those are the 3 toughest remaining schedules of the contending playoff teams.
There's definitely a chance for someone else to move into that bye spot right now. Currently, Judd and I are in the driver's seat for the buys, but that could change very quickly, especially when we have to play each other. So for sure, one of us is taking a loss.
Exactly. You can't both win. I actually lied to everyone there. JMC has the exact same difficulty as Judd. They both have 33 remaining wins against on their team. So it's you and Mel at 35 and Judd and JMC at 33. All 4 of you guys with a tough draw for the rest of the season. After that, things get a little bit easier for some of the teams. Flea plays a remaining strength of schedule of 21 wins. Flinch and Big both play a remaining strength of schedule of 19 wins. And Mr. Good News actually has the easiest draw of all the remaining teams, technically, because he plays 17. But these are a little deceiving because Mr. Good News plays a team with 17 wins and then a team with 0 wins. So he actually only has 1 easy draw out of the 2. Flinch plays a team with 18 wins and a team with 1 win. He only has 1 easy draw out of the 2. It's
So what you're saying is there's going to be a lot of matchups with playoff implications over these next 2 weeks.
Yeah. It's really this week, this coming week, week 13, that's the big one. Because in week 14, Big has a free win, Flea has a free win, Mr. Good News has a free win, and Flinch has a free win.
And this is the last week with a major bye.
That's true as well. We have 6 teams on bye this week for the NFL. Why did they do this?
So there's going to be a lot of teams that their depth is going to be tested if they want to get into the playoffs. They're going to need it this week.
This 6-team bye week is what we get when the NFL decides, oh, the NBA's doing a new in-season tournament thing. Yeah, when they launch that, let's make everyone play in huge primetime games. This is what we get. 6 bye weeks on the eve of the fantasy playoffs.
Big middle finger to the NBA.
Yeah. Like, we get it, guys. You're the number 1 sports league. We understand. Your average games get better ratings than the NBA finals. It's fine. Just move on. Stop messing with your fantasy players. All right, well, that about wraps everything up for this week. Unfortunately, we don't have any manager interviews this week. So hopefully we'll get our last few remaining guests on soon and bring those to you. But until then, we'll catch everybody next time.
Cue the outro music.
I wanted to get your opinion on a Trevor Lawrence quote because I read this Trevor Lawrence quote and it reminded me exactly of something you would say. Trevor Lawrence, when asked if he's excited to face Stroud every year, he goes, "No, I want the teams in our division to be as bad as possible."
The man's just practical, right?
You know, it's kind of refreshing to hear somebody say that because, like, yeah, you want to have the exciting games, you want the division rivalry and all that, but no, I just
you want to
easy
win.
wins.
Yeah, I want to win.